we all have a picture of fulfillment, in our heads and in our minds and in our hearts. And the way we get there is not the same. I was so, I guess, focused on work that I wasn't really thinking about the future in terms of, is this what I really want to spend the rest of my life doing? I am really excited because I feel like I'm finally living. Hi there. Welcome to the very first episode of the Many Roads podcast. I'm your host, Abal Kusanya, and honestly, it's such a privilege to be doing this. I'm so excited to get started on this journey, and I just wanted to take, I guess, the opportunity of this first episode to kind of explain what this all is. Anyways, right. So yeah, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Abal Kusanya. And my story is I grew up in Nigeria, currently live in Canada. I moved to Canada in 2013 for school. I've been here ever since. I met the love of my life here. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a Christian. I'm a musician. I love business. I love the world of entrepreneurship. I love talking to people. I love getting to know people. And recently, I discovered that I love stories and I love telling stories. And, I was thinking about, and I'll get into this later on, but I was thinking about uh, eventually what I want to do with the rest of my life. And it kind of struck me that I would love to tell stories for a living. And I'd love to create a platform that allows people to tell their stories as well. So, hence the Many Roads podcast. This is kind of what we're doing here, right? But yeah, we can go just a little bit into what this whole, I guess, podcast is, right? Um, so I guess the backstory here is that, you know, I feel like in every movie, especially in the superhero movies, I'm a huge nerd, right? In the superhero movies, if it's, in the Marvel universe or in the DC space or whatever it is, right? Every villain, every bad person, bad character, like the bad person in all those movies has an origin story, right? So people always refer to the origin story of, oh yeah, this happened to him and then that's why he became this bad person, you know. Um, but I also look at the flip side of it. All the superheroes we kind of know and have, in these make believe worlds, also have origin stories. And you can also kind of, I guess, relate that to real life. Like you have an origin story, I have an origin story as well. So the origin story of this podcast is what I want to share with you right now. Um, I had, you know, uh, I guess I had gotten to a place in my career. This was a couple of years ago now. I had gone to a place in my career. I'm a project manager in IT, in the world of IT. So I had gotten to a place in my career where I kind of felt like, I could coast here. I could become, I don't want to say I could be complacent, but eventually that's where I was. That's where I got to. I could be complacent, or I could be comfortable rather. I was earning good money, at the time, and I was thinking to myself, I could just do this, ride the wave out, what I mean, like just live the typical life, and just kind of just coast through, like, whatever, just earn some good money, just chill out, just like don't do too much, you know what I mean? But as God will have it, right? The tech industry, of course, experienced significant amount of reshuffling. Organizational reshuffling was what they called it. And I was laid off. Now, being laid off was like the most like heart wrenching thing that could have happened in that season, especially just because I was starting to kind of just get a sense of, what, I could just like coast through this level and everything's fine. And, like, yeah, I'm cool. I'm chilling. So I eventually got to a point after I was laid off. And of course, in the process of searching for a new job and trying out different things, I just started to really think about my life and my career and all of that. And to be quite honest with you, I was so, I guess, focused on work and focused on, I just need to make the money through work, that I wasn't really thinking about the future in terms of, is this what I would really want to spend the rest of my life doing? I was so like just zoned in on, like, hey, I'm just gonna like keep this same job. You know what I mean? Even though God was telling me that it was time to move on, but I was like, no, I'm just gonna, like, the money's great. I'm just gonna stay here. Listen, that, right? But I was just thinking to myself, I'm just gonna stay here, and of course, just kind of see how it plays out. But I had never taken the time prior to being laid off to actually, I guess, do some internal reflection and deep thinking about what do I want to spend the rest of my life doing. And in that season, I mean, when you don't have work, you have a lot of time on your hands. And I'm happy that I was able to kind of use that time productively. But one thing that really stuck to me in that season was, you know, the question I would always ask myself, is this really, I'm a project manager, but do I really want to be a project manager all the rest of my life? Like 20 years from now, if I close my eyes, can I imagine myself still as a project manager? Like, and there's nothing wrong with project management. I love it. And I have a lot of friends who are project managers. So of course, shout out to the project management community. But what I'm saying uh, is this something that I can actually do for the rest of my life? Or am I just like settling? You know what I mean? So I decided, you know what, okay, I'm going to go on this, I guess, sort of journey of discovering like who it is that I am, like who I am and what it is that I would actually love to do. And as God will have it, I kind of got into this world of content creation. Now, prior to this, I hated everything content creation. I used to think like they're just like wasting their time on the internet. Like, why are you posting stuff? You're just narcissistic. You just want people to look at you. I mean, there's people who are like that. Don't get me wrong, but that's not everyone who creates content on the internet. But eventually, I got into this world of content creation, and I have a friend that I reached out to who had a mentorship program at the time, and I was like, "Hey, can you help me kind of figure out, like next steps here?" And he got me like into creating content on LinkedIn, and initially it was fantastic. Initially, it was great because I rediscovered my love for writing. Sometimes, like, we go through life and things happen, and you, I guess, sort of just forget parts of who you are. You know what I mean? Because um, in my undergrad, I went to school for engineering, and um, I studied civil engineering, right? And I mean, in engineering, there's not a lot of writing; it's a whole lot more calculations and all that stuff, right? But I guess through that process, I lost my interest in writing and like creative writing, and I had that in like high school, but I just lost that all through university. So through this experience, I was able to rediscover my love for writing. And I was like, yeah, I really enjoy writing. This is cool. Um, but at the same time, while all this was going on, I'd kind of been feeling a tug in my heart and kind of, I guess, a nudge from God to create video content. But just because I was afraid, I'll be honest with you guys, right? Just because I was afraid, I decided, nah, I'm just gonna like create rating content on LinkedIn and just post that. And like whatever business I decide to do, I'll do based off of that. So it could be coaching, consulting, whatever it is that I want to do, I'll just do based off of that. Um, but a couple of months into it, I started to realize, you know what? This is getting boring. Like, I'm not enjoying this. And, I remember at the time I was telling my wife, I don't think I want to do this anymore. It's not working. And she said, okay, so why don't you just stop and try to figure out what next to do? And one of the issues that I have is I am bad at quitting stuff. I am bad at like, just walking away. It takes a whole lot for me to say, I'm no longer doing this. I'm stopping because I just keep believing that it's going to work out. You know what I mean? So anyways, uh, after a whole lot of back and forth, within myself, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to stop creating content on LinkedIn's written content. But before I did that, I had launched a newsletter because I was like, hey, I could do more writing through the newsletter. It's more long form content, really get my thoughts across to people. So that was kind of the mindset I had. And eventually, all of it just did not feel like I didn't feel like I was getting, I didn't feel like I was doing the thing that God wanted me to do. You know what I mean? So I didn't feel like I was actually living that purpose that God had for me. And the way I kind of looked at it was, it almost felt like I was using the written content to kind of run away from what exactly it is that, I'm supposed to be doing. But through that process, I, of course, like I said, rediscovered my love for writing and my love for, just, I guess, inspiring people and educating people and motivating people in whatever way I could. And I got some really good feedback. And eventually that kind of led to a point where I knew, okay, I'm supposed to be creating video content. So do you think I started the podcast at that point? No, I did not. So I decided to put my feet in the water. I decided to go start creating short form content on the internet just to see how, like how all of that is, like, hey, get a sense of it, get a feel for it. Yeah. And, that went well. It did. Got some good feedback, got some good results from that. But still, it wasn't, it wasn't exactly what I knew I should be doing. But after much, I guess, thoughts and prayers and all that stuff, and summoning the courage, right? Here we are. So that's the origin story of this podcast. It's the fact that, I went through a season of, I guess you would call it, transformation. I'd always looked at myself as a confident person, but I really had to dig deep to see that, hey, I have something of value that I can share with the world. And now we're here. So this is the Many Roads podcast. And that's kind of like how we got here, right? But I know for some of you wondering, like, what is the Many Roads? Like, what does that even mean? It's kind of born from this idea that as human beings, a sort of, we all have a picture of fulfillment, in our heads and in our minds and in our hearts. And the way we get there, it's not the same. There are many roads to fulfillment. For someone, fulfillment in my case might be sharing, I guess, ideas and thoughts and opinions and contributions with the world through a podcast. For somebody else, it might be writing a book. For somebody else, it might be just being an accountant at a big four consulting firm. And for someone else, it might be being a school teacher, right? Those are all different. Those are not even similar in any shape or form. Those are all very different paths to fulfillment, but the end goal is the same, right? So the point and the objective of this podcast is to inspire, motivate, and educate you, the listener, as you either discover your road to fulfillment or as you progress along that road. Because there's going to be times where, well, we're all in different phases, like some people are still at the point where, some people are at the point where I was a couple of years ago, where I was trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do with my life? Other people have figured out what they're supposed to do. They just need to know how to get started. Some other people have started. They just need to know, how do I further progress along what I've started, right? So that's the objective of all of this, is to inspire, motivate, educate you, and help you in whatever way I can, and share my own stories and my own successes and failures and my own views on things, and just hopefully that sort of helps and provides you, of course, some help as you get into, all that God has for you. So that's what the Many Roads podcast is. And honestly, it's, I guess I'll take a break here just to talk about fulfillment. And you know this there's something in every human being. There's a question in every human being that is only answered by them getting to a place where they're fulfilled. And that fulfillment is not about money, material things. It's not about, I guess, how many likes you get, how many followers you have, how many views you get. It's really about you doing something that deeply satisfies your being and your existence. You know what I mean? So it's not about, it's not about selfish ambition. No, no. fulfillment is not about selfish ambition. This is about doing something that's bigger than you. Serving people, providing value, and even business is providing value. If I might add, if you are if you have a business and you're running a business, that is a sort of service. That's a sort of value that is being provided, and of course you get paid and compensated for that value that you provide. But that's also totally fine. Fulfillment is not just in doing things that you're not able to be paid for. So it's not just in volunteer work or not for profit work, but it could be business as well. And I really believe that until we as humans start to walk in and walk along those lines of fulfillment and those roads of fulfillment, at that point, it just feels like we're coasting through life, like I was. It just feels like it just feels like we're existing. And, there's something I always think about, that if I am on my deathbed, by God's grace, at an old age, surrounded by my children and my great grandchildren, my children and my grandchildren, and hopefully my great grandchildren as well, that'd be fantastic. I don't want to be thinking to myself that I just existed through life, that I just sort of coasted through life. I want it to be that, what, I came, the famous "I came, I saw, I conquered," right? You know what I mean? Like, you don't conquer by just existing in life. You don't conquer by just coasting through life. And that's what this fulfillment that I'm talking about is. So for anyone out there who's trying to figure out what to do next, or if you already figure out what to do, but you need some help, just, I guess, getting further along that process and that road, or for someone who's, trying to figure out what the next phase of their journey to fulfillment looks like, you're at the right place. Welcome to the Many Roads podcast. Some episodes will be solo episodes. Some episodes will be bringing in some of like the people, some really inspiring people who really motivate me, who I'm really inspired by, people who have phenomenal stories to tell. And, this is going to be a place where we get to hear those stories. We get to glean from those stories and we get to use those as, ways to improve and get further on our on our progress towards fulfillment, right? So I just wanted to do this first kind of episode as an intro, just to kind of share with you like the vision and the heart behind all of this. I am really excited because I feel like I'm finally living. I know it's weird to say, right? But it just feels like I am finally doing the thing that I was supposed to be doing, and that's really exciting. And I really hope that at some point in your life, if you haven't felt this way, I really hope that you get an opportunity to feel this way. And yeah, we'll see where this whole thing takes us, right? Episodes will drop every Thursday. And we're gonna have a swell time. So if you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you have anyone you'd love for me to interview, bring on the podcast. To the Many Roads towards fulfillment, here we go, right? Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. All right, God bless.